Okay, it's Skinny PP.
Skinny wee wee woo woo.
Coming to you live
we
from
only accept skinny wee wee woo.
Skinny Wee Wee Woo Woo. No, but yeah, my name is Rowan. You can call me Ro or honestly, whatever you fucking want at this point. Everyone else has RO names, and it's making me lose my mind. My favorite thing to draw, well, I don't really like drawing. I would have to say that I prefer coloring, but you know.
Well, that's the bane of my existence.
Yeah, when me and Mac fucking morph into one being, we will be extra powerful. And yeah, I play Malcolm in soon to be Kaleidoscope on the server. So if either of you love or hate my children, I mean, you're valid.
What's your Brush Bandit asks, what's your favorite color combo?
I would have to say I'm gonna go cheesy.
Pink and blue.
I love me some good old 3D red and blue.
Oh,
I dig it.
Yeah.
I can dig that. Yeah. You ever
So-
play Zombies Ate My Neighbors? Fucking. Never mind. Let's keep going.
God,
It's a lot of red,
off
green,
topic,
blue.
loser.
So we're
Listen.
gonna
Cool.
My life is off topic.
we're gonna push forward past the off topicness. We are doing a Q&A at the end. Feel free to keep on asking questions, but I'll guarantee we'll get to your questions at the end of the show. Like I said, feel free. We'll try to get things as they come, but let's move on because we have some sad news. Evie, I think this is your segment.
It's so sad. Earlier this week, Paladin completed his player request, and now one Modron stays put. Paladin has journeyed deep into limbo with a plane of chaos with his trusted allies, and has discovered the breaker of chains and the fire of betrayal, a Gith queen with the interest of defeating the Primus, the Lord of Order and Reason. He resolves to remain in the town over which she presides and lend his knowledge to the cause. To all his brothers and all of those he leaves behind, he offers the following as a comfort in dark times. Routine is a sham, a dangerous comfort designed to silently persuade the weak and subjugate the strong. Never stand alone, but never take orders. That's an order. And also, in the Dead Book, the death of a degenerate. I killed Raiden. The evil is defeated. It's so sad. Alright.
Yeah, that's
Okay, so that's the in memoriam for this week.
I love this getting cut off.
Besides those two tragic deaths, well, I mean, one of them was a death. The other was, a player staying in limbo. But,
Yeah.
there were a few more things that happened on the server this week. Raid prep happened. Now, I didn't know, how much I should talk about this, because I am one of the DMs who's helping run that. But, I was like, should I mention it or not? And then Evie says in our prep chat, the DMs actually got stuff together, so I guess Evie knows, so that's out of the bag. But we talked about it.
Evie only knows because Raiden was like, I have to go join this super secret call. And I was like, what is that about? And he was like, oh, it's about the raid.
He said it in text chat somewhere. That's why I know it happened. So it wasn't secret, but
well,
we know it happened. I just don't know what.
With the limited things I can say, we talked a bit about the siege on Verdankai last week, and the cogs are moving. Things are in place to where things can start. Now I know that some of your characters have been involved in some of the quote-unquote preparation for it. What are you guys looking forward to as this quest line really begins?
I'm looking forward to us going to Verdankai because we're doing a prep quest in Verdankai, and I'm looking forward to when we get there, we just get blown the fuck up.
Oh
Because
god, I
we
love
already
that.
there. You know what I mean?
A quest 1 part 1 TPK.
Yeah, straight up we just get killed, or we just get screwed over because she was literally just waiting for us to show up.
What
Eventually,
the fuck?
it's like
Put
I
me in
knew.
that.
You want to come? We'll bring you if we die.
Yeah.
If it's kind of we'll die. We'll bring you.
I'm really excited for Rozak and Pidge to die together, so that's kind of great.
I'm physically in pain.
I'm sorry, I can never pronounce it correctly. I tried.
No one can!
I'm really trying. I'm so sufficiently white.
Anyways, goodness. But no, like it's what I'm actually excited for is just seeing how it's gonna end. Because obviously, like, this whole thing started with my character sacrificing himself, and I have
Fucking fucking dumbass.
Yeah.
gut wrenching feeling that he's literally just gonna do it again.
You know, speaking on that, I feel like the best characters on the server are just extreme hypocrites, and later on I'll come back to why. But yeah, go ahead.
Excuse you.
Go
Pidge
ahead,
is
Gav.
beth boy.
I said what I said. Go ahead, Gav.
No,
Yeah.
A fucking white guy blinking?
Continue.
Gav.
Well,
Go
from the DM standpoint, I think the players who will be involved will have a really good time. And I don't think I'm spoiling too much, but one big focus that Raiden had talked about is us just really making it a server-wide event, making it accessible to people who don't even have a clue what's going on, have no investment. They'll also have some way to participate in the raid. So look forward to that. Basically, everyone who's watching can be a part of this siege on Verdankai. And then we had we like to talk about current events and state of the server, and one of the big things that stood out to a lot of us, we were preparing the show tonight, definitely not just 5 minutes ago, and we just wanted to mention there's a lot of really cool new players on the server right now.
Oh, yeah.
Woo! That's
One of
what's
them
up.
just joined as we started doing this.
Mhm.
One of
Well,
them joined, hasn't
send
said
him-
anything, I think.
Send them a
Hasn't
link.
said
If you're
anything.
watching.
Don't know if he's gonna stick, but if he does, hi.
Just everyone PM that dude the link to the Twitch channel. Just make him feel welcome.
No!
This is
No!
this is for you. What's his
No,
name?
don't do that.
Please do
Actually,
not
no.
bully the new guy.
Yeah, what the fuck? This
It's
is
like,
my
what is
number
this
one on
freaking
the server.
show?
He's been on the server for a whole 1 minute, and he's already famous. What a guy,
What a
or
guy.
girl,
Guy.
whichever.
What if they
Um,
were just like, oh shit, wrong server? Ah, well.
No,
No, right server now, buddy.
Free ad
can't-
time.
You cannot leave.
And then
Cannot leave. Nope.
what? Okay, so this is kind of an on the spot question. Out of players who you would consider new, are there any standout players that you guys like?
I am really excited for Lewin, who is a new character. She is an elderly character, and she's just like a joy. She's like the server's grandmother, and I love her. I haven't met her in character yet, mostly because I'm a level 10, and she's like a level 3. But
Funny
even in
about that.
roleplay-
Same quest.
Even in roleplay, I haven't met her.
And there's no
I
excuse
Which
for
I
that.
want to.
I met her in
Which there
roleplay
is no
and
excuse.
I scared the living shit out of her. Because we were at the high board, I was in my power armor, and then she tried to hide, and then with my 25 passive perception.
Oh no! One
And
tier.
that's Jade's character, Lewin.
Yeah.
So, really excited to meet her whenever I finally get around to not being garbage.
It seems to be one of those character concepts where everyone says, I'm going to make a really old character one day. And then Lewin actually did it. So
Yeah.
Yeah,
props to that.
this is really old.
Anybody else? Anybody else?
Any new person?
Well,
Tillinger has a sister. That's
Cylindra
fun.
has a sister, so that's neat.
Oh, so does Tenebrae now.
And so does
Tenebrae
Tenebrae.
does, but that was Ave. She's been here.
Yeah,
Oh,
But
yeah.
her,
Ave's not here.
her backup is Tenebrae's new half sister.
Fucking Ave out here stealing thunder again. God damn it, life mother.
I talked to. I don't know if this is like secret stuff, but I'm gonna out them anyway. But like I talked to Ave. I think it was like this morning or at some point, and then I was like, hey, I want Avesh to talk to Alona, which is Ave's backup. And then Ave was like, well, I think the plan was for Tenebrae to introduce Alona to like a bunch of people. And then I was like, oh, but that's gonna be terrible because Tenebrae doesn't like me very much.
Yeah.
So it's just gonna be like, and this is Avash. All right, moving on.
Yeah, they were talking before we came in here, and they were basically like, "Oh, I want to go watch the podcast, but after we do that, we should probably track down Krook and make him meet us in the market ward." And I was like, "How's that gonna work out there? That's gonna be neat."
Are they just gonna pretend to bump into him?
Yeah.
And just be, oh, I didn't know you were here. Except I've been watching your patterns for the past week and a half.
Holy
Yeah.
shit, got him.
Yeah. Yeah. New. Also, technically new person, Catherine. Finally got to see her in action.
character,
She's
yeah.
pretty neat.
Oh yeah.
I got to
So,
see her in action only because I DM'd the game.
Yeah,
Nice.
there was a swimsuit contest involved. Catherine has a lot more an actual character tie-in with Raz and Malcolm, which is Mac and Ro, obviously.
Oh yeah.
So, I was-
Malcolm saved her or whatever. I forget.
I had in my mind a backup that was totally unrelated, but figured there'd probably be more fun to introduce this character that a few people know and kind of let the rumor spread from there. So yeah, that's fun. I'll give a shout out as far as new players go. There's this new guy in the server named Minion, plays Rochester.
Oh,
uh,
Rochester, he's fun.
He's
Good.
he's
I like
he's
that
a
guy.
character. He's fun. He's just a cool guy. I like hanging out with him.
Yeah,
Yeah,
honestly,
he's real neat.
it's always nice to just like to find people who join a server and are very like
As excited as
Chill.
we are.
yeah,
Well,
and yeah,
chill,
like then they're
excited
happy
to
and
play,
they're just like kind of
excited to join, but chill to hang out with.
yeah, it's good. Love that shit. Fucking, if you're listening, we love you. If you're not listening, I still love you. Just fucking listen, dingus.
Haha,
Uh,
gay.
Are you drawing us on the
You're drawing us as our characters on the podcast?
Pretty
That's
dope.
Gee, I don't know. What do you think I'm doing?
Look,
love
let's
it.
keep going. I'm loving this. Anyway,
so dope.
That's a pinch tail.
I'm just stuck watching this now. Holy shit.
look at
You
the
guys
little
missed-
headphones. Oh god, I'm sorry.
You guys missed the
Um,
best one where I drew Raz out making heterosexuals illegal in Eternity.
I saw that.
I
was
know, I
watching
saw that
that.
one. Welcome to Serendipity, where you can come and cry about all of your characters dying
Oh,
in
man, is that-
voting card.
Oh wow, we out there. This is like, okay, this is like an awful nightmare at the same time.
What?
Imagine
Because you have to go next.
Yeah?
no, but I mean like just fucking imagine like all of our characters actually running a podcast. Can you fucking imagine what
Oh,
God.
God.
that'd be?
I think,
Don't
I think,
invite Raz in. He'll just do the dick joke power hour segment.
I think
It would
Raz.
be
Oh,
exactly like the
wow.
beginning of this podcast, except instead of like Evie, it's like Pitch being like, "Stop! Everybody stop!"
just
That'd be great.
just blood boiling
should-
the
we should,
entire time.
We should
Poor
fucking
Catherine.
we should make that okay. Slightly off topic actually. Wow. But
Quick question: are you gonna draw Catherine or are you gonna draw Anna?
So, well, see, she's smiling towards Avash. So, what do you think?
Oh,
Oh,
it's definitely Anna.
definitely Catherine.
Smiling,
holy shit, got him.
plotting his death. That's what it is.
She's picturing the blood, and that's why she's smiling.
Yeah.
So we're gonna. Okay, I'll let you finish this one in peace, and we'll move on. Just to give you a second.
Oh my god!
Okay. So
Well.
that said, we have a lot of new players. I hope some of them are watching. If not, we're reposting this as a VOD as soon as the show's over. It might be missing the first few minutes. Don't worry about that part. But
Yeah, we're cucks. It's fine.
and we'll rerun it about 12 hours from now in the morning for our international viewers. I see Maria in the
well-
chat. That's a rarity. What's
Yeah.
up?
Oh,
Shout out.
Maria!
Let's go,
Maria, I
Maria.
love you.
We
I
love
love
you.
Maria. Thank you, Maria, for my life.
By contract and blood pact, we can only both be awake at the same time twice a week.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
It's an ancient
Oh,
gypsy
no.
curse.
Mm-hmm.
So
Your
the topic we
intestines will
wanted to
explode.
talk about this week, briefly, which is not going to be briefly. We're going to spend a lot of time on this, I bet.
Yes.
But it's
Oh,
we have a lot of new players. We want to talk about how to be the best beginner possible.
Yeah.
And there's a few things to that, right? So, first off, if you've just joined the server and you've never played D&D, what are the few things that you would tell, or what's the best advice you can give to a new D&D player?
Step 1, read the rules.
Yes.
Really?
Rules, guidelines and rules channel. Read
Wait,
that.
no,
all
I think
of
he
it.
means
This is just
D&D
Dungeons and
as a
Dragons.
whole.
We're gonna
But,
get to Planar
you know,
Marches.
game.
You know what? Honestly, but when they get here, read the guidelines and rules. And after that, once you figure out everything there, you can also read the player's handbook.
Yeah.
The rules there, not necessarily horribly needed. Your DM will guide you through a lot of it.
Yeah.
It's pretty straightforward. It's based on a 1d20 die. You just build all your characters. But honestly, the funnest part about D&D for a lot of people is actually character creation. And that's out of order in the player's handbook, arguably, for a lot of people. So it starts with the races and then goes on to the classes and the backgrounds and the equipment and everything like that. But I feel like most people start with the class they want to play and then
Yeah.
work with the races, and then they work with the backgrounds after that.
Or sometimes
what I do.
people,
And then
they'll,
equipment and spells come like last.
Yeah,
Like,
but also I feel like a lot of people lately, I recommend personally as a new player since I barely started playing D&D, to sort of, if you can, maybe just already go with the character you already have. Malcolm, he's been on the back burner for a long time, and now look at him. He's a degenerate man that's a very tanky boy.
yeah,
But-
a lot of the people that have come from other servers and end up here have actually come from places like role-playing places. Like
Yeah.
Sib last week came from a Ruby role-playing group, and the difference is minimal to none. Turns out role-playing is very similar to just a role-playing game.
Yeah.
It's as if it's in the name.
It's kind of
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's kind of like
Well,
what? It's kind of like God mode proof RPing, I guess.
Oh,
yeah,
What's
it's-
the term?
I don't
When you-
know.
when you-
God
but-
modding?
God modding? Is
Yeah.
that it?
Yeah,
God
it's-
modding
it's-
is when
so-
you're playing
was
as an
in-
You
overpowered.
guys sound
Okay.
so fucking old.
D&D is like when you roleplay, but you can't be like, it was a hologram at the
Yeah.
end.
Because
Yeah.
because back in role playing forums, like back in the day, I remember like kids were always
I
yelling at
remember
each
God
other
modding
about
was the...
stop God modding my character. He wouldn't do that. Stuff like
Yeah.
that. D&D is like role playing where you don't have to worry about that. It's pretty awesome.
Yep,
Because there
instead
are
you just have to
rules.
tell the dice that.
But
Yep.
the thing
Yeah.
is, you
Just
can
gotta-
you can god mod anyway. If you're one, the DM, and two, good at the game.
Okay,
Yeah.
first of all, if you are the DM, you're technically God right there in the fucking
Exactly.
moment. So it's not modding. You're so powerful. But
Like, my favorite / least favorite thing is when a person in character will give like an amazing, like incredibly deceiving to the point that anybody who has not actually met this character before is like absolutely on board with the idea, like an amazing deception, and then they roll for it and they roll like a 1,
Mhm.
and I'm
Yeah.
like, no, listen, in character you did amazing,
There are things you have
so
to. Like,
you're going
decide.
to get that
Personally,
regardless
like-
of that 1.
What I like to do as a DM, this is completely off topic, but what I will do is I'll have them tell me what they say first, and then decide whether or not I want them to roll.
Yeah.
But back to playing D&D. If you're new to D&D, and you're new to role playing as a whole, I would say, first figure out the rules. If that's your thing, right? Like if you I guess it depends on what you do. If you're into like video games or just like board games, like games in general, then focus on the rules, and then work your way through that. Otherwise, if you're into storytelling, books, movies, and things like that, then focus on the character, and then work your way.
Yeah. And then
and then you just kill them because they end up being garbage.
there are a lot of people on the server that are really into multiclassing, and they will tell you that multiclassing is superior to just straight classing. They're
Oh god.
that's a lie.
Yeah, that's
You can
bullshit.
straight play any one class and then get to the end, and then we'll still have fun.
Yeah.
Let me
With a
kind of-
couple of exceptions like warlocks, which aren't really as well written unless you're going with Hexblade.
Damn. Okay, just
Fucking-
call out Mako down.
Listen, re-at me. It's true. Hexblades are
I mean-
fun.
But
And
you're
then
broken. But anyway.
they're broken, but they're fun.
They're broken.
Let me
And then-
Internally and
like-
externally, they're just depressed on main.
And then like the Beastmaster Rangers are fun for roleplay, but not very like fun in this particular setting, especially because it's like, oh, I'm gonna, have my giant badger burrow, I guess. Oh, by the way, this is a stone building, so he can't do that.
Let me ask one question to kind of close out this mini segment. If
Yeah.
a person is just now joining D&D, I know this is somewhat based on the person, but do you encourage them to learn how to play the game or to play their character, right? Do you focus a ton on, here's how you play D&D, or do you focus on, play the character you want to play and I'll help you along the line, right?
Well,
Oof.
I'm gonna speak as someone who has personally handheld several different people in starting to play D&D. One of them right here.
Honestly, Mac, best
Yeah.
teacher, but don't bother him too much.
But yeah. In fact, shout out to my best friend Tim, who I'm trying to get into D&D.
Yes.
Uh,
Another
in
new
fact-
player that we're excited for.
Excited.
Love you, Tim.
I'm also excited to meet that character. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Her character's name is actually pronounced Haram. So it's just a
that's-
fucking Muslim joke forever. Anyway. The character she's playing, because she rolled her stats and she got fucking a 5 and a 9, I think.
Yeah.
And she dumped all that stat into intelligence.
Yep. Who needs
As
to-
And as if
Shut
you've
up.
seen how she debuted in Serendipity, it was pretty great. It was pretty excellent. But yeah, the way she was nervous at first. It's like, I mean, how do I play D&D? I've been listening to you guys, and you guys just do those commands. What am I supposed to do? And honestly, the first thing I tell her is just like, yeah, I think the best advice is, you see your character, I think you should worry about them first. Just like, how would you play a character? How they will approach things in D&D, and then you worry about things like the stats, creating them, all that such. Because what is D&D if you don't even recognize your own character?
It's
Yeah, I
all
was
about
gonna
like
say.
what you look at first, right? Like, or
Yeah.
what you want to get out of the game. If you want to get the character development and talking and role playing and things like that, that's wonderful. I love that stuff. And then that's what you should focus on when creating your character and everything.
But some people just want to play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, some people like to roll dice, and that's totally cool as well, because fucking rolling dice is
Shout
fun,
out to Dale.
and
Yeah.
making characters is awesome. So like, hell yeah, dude! Like more
D&D's
power to you. It's all about
D&D's
what
a
you
cool
want to do.
game that lets you do that. Small
Yeah.
segue, right? I was looking into Warhammer the other day. Warhammer 40k, giant table, miniature army. That's the coolest thing. But I don't want to learn how to paint miniatures. Like, that's a game that forces you to learn two completely, vastly different skill sets. D&D doesn't. D&D says you can roleplay or know how to play the game. One or the other, you'll get help, right?
Most of it's free, so here you go. That's another
Yeah.
thing I really like about 5th edition.
Also, you can still have a life and play D&D. You can't really have a life and play Warhammer 40k.
Some would argue that if you die in the game, you die for real. So,
Uh-huh.
Dying game.
Uh,
That's just D&D rules. You die in the game, you die in real life. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
yeah.
That's why I'm so fucking ready to just kill Malcolm. So I too.
Oh shit, same hat. This is why I'm trying to not get Malcolm killed, so I can win.
What the fuck?
I'm gonna win this game.
The
So,
death game.
let me move on. Okay, so you went out and you got your completely legal hardcover book of the D&D player handbook,
Yeah.
Yes,
No, let's
completely.
keep
And,
going. Yeah.
uh,
No, keep
Yeah.
going.
and
Yeah.
and you live in like the middle of nowhere. You live in like Greenville, Wisconsin. Every state has a Greenville. I just picked like the most random state I could.
Fuck,
You
I'm
live in
sweating.
Greenville,
I'm like,
Wisconsin.
oh, shit.
Wisconsin.
and you have 0 friends within 3 miles. All of your friends live like 3 traffic lights away, and that's 30 miles away. And you just want to play some D&D.
This hits so
So,
close to
uh,
home.
So
Yeah,
you go to Roll20 or Reddit or Discord, and you find the Planar Marches server. You had a great introduction. This weird guy named Guile, some character from Street Fighter, posted a link, and you want to join. So you're here. You're at the Planar Marches. What does being a beginner for Planar Marches mean? And
Read the guidelines and rules.
How
Read
do
the
you have,
guidelines and
how do
rules.
you have
This is
the
where
best
Evie can yell at you.
experience?
Read
So
the guidelines and rules.
Best
I will
experience.
yell into the oblivion. Read the guidelines and rules. The best
Read-
experience that you could possibly have. Read the guidelines and rules. That is all.
Evie's fucking frothing at the mouth. Please read the guideline and rules.
Even if you're not new here, go reread them. But
Yeah.
also, like, yeah, definitely the best way to get the freshest start and the easiest start is to just read up on the rules, our server rules,
Mhm.
rather, right? Because there are some things that we do differently here, and there's some things that 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 is just stuff that we do, like fucking rolling for stats, the way we roll gold, or the treasure point system. A lot of the stuff that we have on the server is kind of already we packed it all into a neat little thing where you can just scroll down. It's not even that long, really.
Yeah.
That's what she
You just-
said. Got him.
Huh.
I
Fucking
mean,
got him.
it's my story of my life. But anyway, and
Fucking
so
self got him.
it's just like it's good. You read that, and then once you've read that, you should have a grasp. And if there's still questions, then that's when you start asking questions. Because as much as I love my quote unquote job of like telling people what to do. What's it called? It's a little frustrating. I'm not gonna lie. It's a little frustrating when people ask questions that's already answered in the guidelines, right? Because it's just like, well, literally the first thing we say to someone is, "Hey, read guidelines," and then they come in with the questions like, "How do I roll characters?" And it's just like, it's in the guidelines.
It's in the guidelines
So
and rules.
let's
They're
say
like,
that,
oh yeah, I was skimming it. Oh yeah? Yeah, you were skimming the rules? You ever skim the rules in Monopoly? It doesn't work.
House rules. Let's say that we we're running the
He's gonna
Planar
come and kill
podcast.
someone in real life.
We're running the Planar podcast. We have a group of our viewership is just smart, the best people, who read all the
Yeah.
guidelines and rules, made their character. What do you suggest they do as a beginner on Planar Marches? Just they know what they want to do at D&D. They've already talked to Evie. Evie didn't strangle them because they were good boys and girls. What's next?
Mhm.
Read the setting. That's a little category there. It's hashtag sigil, hashtag factions, hashtag planar primer. It's in the little sidebar there. So basically, Papa Guile, in all of the love and joy that he's made, read the Planescape books from 2nd edition, fell in love with that, and then condensed it, smashed it, put it in a tiny little box, and then put it in those channels. And that's what those are. If those aren't enough for you, you can absolutely go back and read those 2nd edition books. They go really, really, really in depth.
Yeah, we pick and choose for sure to make it accessible
Yeah.
and fun, right? It's not fun to have to memorize 20 books of lore, but continue.
Yeah, there's that.
Speak for
It's like
yourself,
Guile was like, listen, there are like 40 different factions. Not all of them are interesting. Most of them are the same thing, just worded slightly differently. So he took all of them, took the best ones, which of course, the best ones being the Sensates, and then pushed them all into one, combined a couple of them together, and then everything else that's not in there was either lost during the faction war or is still there if you're interested in still being them, honestly. But those are just the ones that Guile wanted to focus on and actually like
Make
put
prominent.
in there.
Hold on,
Yeah.
Evie. Wait,
Yes.
my good friend Schizo in chat, which by the way, he's also one of my top new players, but I
Yes.
invite him, so I didn't want to like be called biased. But he mentioned
late.
one thing you forgot. One
Check
very
the
big
pins.
rule: check the pins.
Check the pins. Oh
Check the
my
pins.
goodness.
Probably right
I know
under,
it's-
like right under guidelines and rules is check the pins. Like they're on the same line. They're like 1 pixel apart as far as priority.
Yeah, on the server we got a lot of pins everywhere, and it's a little
Uh-huh.
hectic. We're looking into fixing that.
Yeah, we
It's
can
really
move
well.
a big dog.
I mean, personally, I think it's really well organized. Right? You're in channel.
Thank
You
you.
don't know what it is. Oh, well, there's this pin here, and now I know everything I need to know about the channel.
Yeah.
That's true. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like
There are things that
the
can be
most
done.
pins that we have actually fall into the exchange and the greater sigil, which are the roleplay channels, which explain, here's this channel, it's called the Guildhall Ward, here's what the Guildhall Ward is.
For example, the dogs don't have any actual water in them.
For example, the docks don't actually have water.
It's an airship dock.
It's a place where you put all your airships and all of your extra planar travel vehicles. So you can put your mundane waterborne and land vehicles there. They do have parts for that, but it's not like entire water. It's like a mixture of all of it in a way to capture all of the possible vehicles that you could have. Mostly because we allow players to buy their own vehicles from the Dungeon Master's Guide, including the 20,000 gold piece airship, which
Holy
we're
shit.
halfway there.
We could.
Halfway
I mean,
there.
a lot of us.
Yeah,
could go
we're
together
halfway
and do
there.
that.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Ro. I'm gonna put you on the spot for a second.
Oh, I'm sweating.
Only because everyone currently in the call, except yourself, was here for week 1, day 1 of the server. So you're a new
Oh.
player. You come in. How would you describe your first few days on the server? What helped you the most? What would you take from that experience? Just taking all of this information in and tell the next generation.
Mistake number 1, assuming I like being in the server. I'm joking. I'm joking. This place is great.
Fucking
This place
got
is
him.
great.
Wow. Okay.
If you
Same
need
question.
me, I
Same
will,
question. Same question to Mac. Pretend you weren't here at the start. Continue.
I will be right back. I'm just gonna go ban Ro.
No! Hey!
Let's
Okay.
go.
Okay.
We have this
I have
tradition.
to say. Okay, listen. I'm a jokester. I'm joking. We're joking here.
Yeah.
I have to say, See, the thing is, I can't really pinpoint exactly what point, like, everyone started being quote-unquote helpful, because, like, right off the bat, like, if you would ask a question, there was someone with answers. And I feel like the only advice I can really give to people who don't really know the rules, don't really do this and that, is to not be afraid to ask questions. Like, yes, do read the pins and do actually look at the rules and everything, but if there's just something you don't understand about the rules, or like, we tend to shorten words here a lot, so like con and char and all that sort of stuff, some people shout out to Leslie, actually, one new player too on the server.
Oh, yeah.
That's my lovely girlfriend.
I love her.
She didn't really understand, like, what stats actually meant and so on and so forth, and that's okay to ask. That's very okay to ask. This place is very good for people who have never played D&D ever before at all, and they just want to try something new. There's no shame in it. You can always hop in and listen in on a session and really get a feel for the game and get yourself hyped up to actually learn all the mechanical stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much all you can do. Once you feel like you've buckled down, you have your character and everything, don't be afraid to ask questions. Because
So-
you can always learn the mechanics and so on later on. You can always be like, hey, I don't know how you actually roll with a rare or something. It's gonna be fine. You're gonna be
We
fine.
have a tutorial for that, by the way. Check the pins.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. See, look at that. Everything's covered. You'll be great.
So before we move on, Mac, if you could finish your drawings because we're gonna switch over to Rowan pretty quick here.
Oh,
We're
nice.
a little
My
little
bad.
past our halfway point, but
You fool.
like I said, for those of you who are just now joining us and joining us late, Mac and Rowan are our guests today, and they are going to draw for us live, as Mac's been doing this entire time. And they're doing half shifts, so Mac's doing the first half of the show, Rowan's doing the second half, and we'll actually post a lot of these pictures separately with the VOD. We'll post it when we post the VOD on the server. We'll have like a little folder or a link that has a link to all these photos if you guys want to see them.
Sweats as I'm just drawing my character.
I might just make the Avash being like it's in the rules and Pidge screaming read the guidelines. I might just make that an alias.
So we're gonna have some pretty good meme stuff in the days after the podcast today.
If y'all have like art requests, you can just ask them at the end of the fucking stream. Fucking thumbs up emoji.
Draw fucking Leon and Sophie kiss.
Okay, I will do that while we shift the screen to Ro. Open your stupid screen share, buddy.
Okay,
Ro,
hey,
I believe.
God, jeez, we talked about this. Malcolm is into. We talked about this. Malcolm's into being degraded and everyone. Okay, that's rude.
Shut up.
Oh shit. What's up, gamers? This is. You can. Hey, Gavin, you can cut that out in the video, right?
It's still
live.
live.
Dingus.
I mean, I'm just asking, man. Hey, it's good to ask. Well, let's just not talk about that awful boy. This is
Could have been worse.
my good girl, Kaleidoscope. You can call her fucking Kale. You can call her Scope. You can call her Neon Lesbian. You can call her.
She's my favorite neon lesbian, and she is my daughter.
What's up,
She's a
K-Scope?
nice lesbian.
K-Scope.
What's up,
K-scope.
K-Scope? Did you hear from like
360
USI's?
no scope.
She has 2 420 knives, actually.
Yeah.
You want to actually go?
Isn't her birthday 422? Did you finally change that?
Yeah. I just decided it would be 420.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's been, I want to say, like a good 3 months since I've been on the server, and this place is completely accommodating. There's nothing I can really immediately complain about, because you know how it is. We all know how it is. Like, there's always going to be a few bad apples, but it's nothing to really fuss over, because the wonderful helper team will not only listen to all of your problems, they will immediately take care of it. Like, seriously. You don't.
Nice.
I feel like people consider me and Mac to be very close to the mod and helper team, and Mac is also a helper. But
Max especially
really,
close.
yeah.
One would even say it. One would
He's in
even
it.
say he's a part of it.
Yeah, it's just listen. I just,
Let me
sometimes
tell you
I
when the
don't-
last time we sent a message in the fucking helper chat was. It was actually earlier today. The last message was not like this, and then it was me being like XD. That was literally all we were talking
Oh
about.
yeah,
I don't
yeah.
remember.
No, we're talking about
Yeah,
some.
but
We were just
also
talking about the
another
age
thing,
limit.
people not to just straight up call out the gays, but you're very welcome here. Me and Mac are both trans, and it's just my voice doesn't pass, and people are really good with pronouns and everything. So don't.
Oh,
ever feel-
jeez, big mood.
Yeah, don't ever feel afraid to hop in, because I know I was very curious about console. Don't even worry about it. You're gonna like it here. You're gonna like it here.
Yeah, inclusivity is actually a very legitimate concern when it comes to stuff like geek circles, because those neckbeard old white dudes that usually are in there.
Yeah.
So it can feel dangerous for people like me. I'm trans, I'm Muslim, I'm autistic, and having a place like this where everybody's accepting and just sees you as as the player instead of the cumulative of who your labels are. It's good.
Yeah, me and your local Mexican fucking mess of a man here. we got you. We got you. It'll be fine. You can always, talk to anyone you need at all. Never be afraid to approach a helper because they're a helper for a reason. They're all very nice. You'll feel welcome soon enough.
I'm not. People
Yeah.
hate me.
Okay,
I hate
well,
So all of that just got said, don't apply to Crook.
That does
yeah,
not apply.
don't- Never mind. Fuck Rook.
You come to me when you want you to make a broken class, and I'll give you one. All right?
So
Yeah, you
you're
do
That's
that?
all.
Really?
you're a beginner to D&D.
You want to know how to do every command? I'll just link you the tutorial. Don't even ask me questions.
You're a beginner.
anyway.
You're a beginner to D&D. You're in Greenville, Wisconsin. Your nearest
Yes.
friend, who you've been texting about Planar Marches, is 40 miles away from you, and you've read the guidelines and rules. You've checked all the pins. You're best friends with Evie now, and you play a game. The game is awesome. You got your first treasure point, and you're like, you know what? I want a DM. What is the
Oh.
number one piece of advice? We'll try to make this short. What's your number one piece of advice on how a beginner should start to learn how to DM, specifically on Planar Marches, broadly in D&D?
Read the
So
rules.
first things first. Definitely get even more in tune with the rules of the game, because remember how we said earlier. Here's the thing, because we said earlier that when you're new as a player, the DM will guide you. But if you're new as a DM, now you are the guide, right? Now that isn't always the case, right? Because sometimes you'll have an experienced player, and then they'll answer questions for you, which is awesome. It's awesome if you can be in that situation, but you're not always going to be in that situation. And so definitely get more familiar with the rules.
Let me add one thing before that, right? Sorry to interrupt.
Go for it.
No, go ahead.
And this applies to both steps before, to being a beginner in D&D, to being a beginner on Planar Marches, to being a beginner in DMing. Ask for help, right?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Even beyond...
Ask for help.
Even,
Read the rules. Ask for help.
and I would put this
Ask
on
for
the
help.
exact same
That's
level.
for advice. Take the advice.
I would put this on the
Yeah.
same
Advice.
time as reading the rules, right? Because especially when D&D as a game, right? All of the stuff that you're learning, a lot of it doesn't make sense a lot of the time. Spell slots are weird. And
They're fucking whack.
like
man.
They're
like
weird.
we don't see it as weird because we've been playing the game for a long time, but looking in the eyes of a new player, every time I explain a few things like ability scores, mods, proficiency, spell slots, I'm like reminding myself that this is not all natural. So
Yeah.
don't be afraid to ask for help, because you asking for help now saves us time later when we're in game, right? It helps both of us.
Mm-hmm.
We get a lot of
Listen.
people who ask a lot of questions, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry for being a pest," and
You're
it's
not.
just like,
No,
"No,
no.
you are not.
You are not. You are being
You're-
proactive
You're valid.
in making the game run smoothly. So
Exactly.
Yeah,
You're
if you're
the
asking
opposite
questions,
of such."
you're doing what you're supposed to. That's just
Exactly.
bottom line. Like, don't. They're here to make sure that you're able to actually understand things, and if they help you do that, then they're doing their job. You're doing what you have to do. It's good. It's a good system. Don't even worry
Yeah.
about it.
Let me go ahead.
back on the how to DM thing, what it says in the very beginning of the Dungeon Master's Guide and in the Player's Handbook is that Dungeons and Dragons is together with the DM and the players a story. So really getting in touch with your storytelling side and making a fun story instead of saying like, I have A, I have C, don't know what B is. We're going to figure that out when we get there. That works sometimes, but not all of the time. But trying not to be like, we're doing A, and now we're doing B, and now we're doing C, and you have no choice in the matter of whether or not we do B 2.5 or whatever.
Yeah, definitely make options, right? Because there's a difference between storytelling and collaborative storytelling.
Mhm.
Because if you're just telling them the story, then they might as well not have rolled characters, right? But if you're collaborating on the story, then it evolves. Things change. You have a plan. The DM has a plan for something that's going to happen, and then the players throw a curveball, and it's just like, oh, we're gonna figure it out this way instead. And then now it's the DM's job to figure that out. And that's another thing you got to work on as a DM is improvisation.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think there's
Oh, yeah.
I think there's
Being
two,
DM is just improv.
I think there's
Yep.
two sides to a coin, right? So I think there's two primary skills you need, or should have. You should have good preparation, and you should have good improv. And a lot of people are good at one of those things and not the other, but that's fine. You need to be good at least one of those two things. Because if you're well prepared, you don't have to improv. If you're good at improv, you don't quite have to be as prepared. You can make your sessions more open, quote unquote. But I would, if you know yourself, you'll learn about yourself when you start DMing. You'll learn what you're good at and what you're bad at, and you'll learn what to focus on and fix.
Oh, for sure. Like my first campaign that I tried to run, I over prepped everything, and it was super stressful, and I didn't really like it.
And what's worse is that usually you prepare the wrong things when you're a new DM.
Oh
Exactly.
yeah.
And so I felt like they what I prepared they didn't want to do, and so I was like, well, shit, I'm doing something wrong. And then I realized I should be prepping less, and that's something I've grown comfortable doing, is actually just not filling in the gaps of certain things, which is a little DM secret that I'm gonna give out, that I actually don't prep as much as I say I do. There you go.
What the hell?
That's not
You
a
guys-
secret,
see,
Brooke.
you can't be a little more
It's
honest.
not a secret.
Okay?
That's a
As
fucking
someone
character
who's
secret. You lie.
yeah, what the fuck? You guys are assholes. You guys are like, ooh,
Well, because here's the thing.
yeah. And then you don't even what?
Because
Listen,
it's DM by DM. They all have their own work methods.
okay.
right.
I love how you're trying to justify lying to everyone's faces right now, and I'm gonna let you do that.
Because no, I definitely do prep. I prep maps, I prep encounters and things like that. The thing about my improvisation is I improv story bits a lot, and I improv scenarios and things. But for the most part, mechanics, how I want a fight to go, who I want to be in this fight, a lot of that stays consistent because that's what I actually prep, and I focus more on that.
And
than
that's
writing.
more in control if you think about it.
Yeah, and that's
Stuff
stuff you
like-
can actually control. That's another thing, because yeah, I'm gonna let Mac finish that.
Yeah, because stuff like encounters. I mean, I'm not a DM on Planar Matches. I'm probably not gonna be for a pretty long while.
No.
I've been a strictly player on Planar Matches. I have 36 games under my belt right now. But
This madman.
I do have experience as a DM, and I'd like to say that honestly, for people who are more on the narrative creative side, you don't have to worry much about the story. But when it comes to prepping stuff like maps, encounters, those are things with rigid rules that you can abide to that will help. But everything else, it just honestly, I make shit up on the fly.
That's right, yeah.
See,
You gotta do sometimes.
even now I'm taking notes. You know,
Yeah.
I'm fucking
you
taking
want-
notes. So Kruk to just throw that curveball, I'm like blinking white guy mean, but we'll come back to that. What the hell?
Yeah. For me personally, I mostly focus on the story and what I want people to be able to do, as opposed to actually focusing on maps or NPCs. Those kind of come last. I do like building NPCs. They're very fun to make, and my favorite thing to do is build NPCs that people remember and want to
Eggy?
talk about, and like
And
my
when-
egg son.
And when people don't remember, you turn them into a PC, so they're forced to remember.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, I almost
Oh,
forgot about
fucking-
them. Oh, really?
Oh yeah,
Is that what you
Sophie was an NPC. She was
She was.
in
Cat was an
one of my-
NPC.
Cat was an NPC. Sophie was an NPC who worked at the Huffle Hog, and she met Malcolm and the Doc and a couple of other people. I can't remember all the
Wow,
time.
I'm right here, and yet
Oh, hi, fucking I love you. You were there. You were there. Innocent was there too. I remember him. He exists.
Oh, he's been
Yeah.
here for a while. But yeah, we love that guy.
missed the guy.
I remember him. But making these NPCs and making them all memorable and making them distinct people kind of makes people a little less enthusiastic to just murder hobo.
Yes.
And there's a time and a place for murder hoboing,
That's you.
especially.
That's you.
It's cathartic, you know, to just fucking
It's
go in
cathartic
and be
to
like. That's one thing I really like. Is I like making constructs as enemies, because there's no emotional baggage to that for the
Yeah.
most part, unless you talk. If you make them talk and they're sentient, then it's worse than killing a child, honestly. But anyway,
Yeah.
I was about to say, unless you introduce them to AI.
Unless
Yeah,
it's mate and he's like beat boot motherfucker, and then you're like, oh, I can't possibly kill you, you chainsaw-handed motherfucker. I can't.
But that's one thing I like to do as a DM is I like to let my players kill stuff sometimes, and constructs and undead for the most undead, like the brainless ones, zombies, ghouls, and stuff. Those are really easy enemies to have because they're low consequence, right? They're consequence-free enemies, and you can just be like, yeah, no one cares about these guys, just fucking destroy them. It's a hunk of metal, it's a hunk of rotten flesh, you know.
Okay, lightning round.
That is you. What the
Lightning
hell?
Lightning round. End of topic. One or two sentences you'd say to a first time DM. Croat, go.
Oof, first time DM. Okay.
On Planar Marches. What's the one?
Planar Marches.
What are one?
Okay.
What's the TLDR?
Have a good hook, because if you get your hook first, then you hardly even need to write the rest of the story for the most part, because it'll just write itself.
Okay, Evie.
Right.
Write the story, and don't be afraid to let your players interrupt your villain's awesome monologue.
Mac.
Prep good, improv better.
Ro.
Ooh.
I don't even DM yet. I'm like literally like
A+ advice.
New player advice?
No, I said A+ advice. Got him.
I'm not even a freaking
Oh.
A+ advice is don't DM.
Okay. Yeah.
What would you tell a first time DM on Planar Marches? Don't.
Don't.
Turn back and run.
Yeah, just
Just leave.
If you
Remember
were a
to
player
listen
and
to
some
your
okay.
players,
Hold.
not-
If you were a player and your DM started the session with, "This is my first time being a DM," what would you tell them?
It's cool. It's Gucci.
Yeah, just
Fucking
relax. I mean, everyone has their first time everything, you know, it's like riding a bike, you'll be fine. But try to like be careful of hurtling your players, because like you guys said, sometimes some people put their characters first and they will stick to their alignment to a T, and that's fine, that's great. But like don't get mad at them, if that makes any sense. Like it's okay to be frustrated with yourself, but just don't accidentally push that onto the players. They just want to have a good time too. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that works. I agree.
That's nice.
I'm
I
sweating.
guess
Don't do that to me ever again, Gavin.
No, you-
my advice
That
would
was
be
good.
you're on Planar Marches, ask for help. Just
Yeah.
if you don't have to do it blindly, don't do it blindly. We're here to help.
Mhm. Bug us.
Small
Bug
tip,
us as much as you.
always, ask like someone after a session, like just DM the DM and be like, hey, I was wondering if you'd be willing to share your notes on the boss and stuff. Like it's just it's no big deal, really. It's just stuff like that that people are more than willing to do, especially for first time dungeon masters and all that. So don't be afraid. End of the day, it just comes back to that.
So for
Fucking
this, go
Get out
ahead.
there.
So for this next segment, as I've mentioned multiple times as you've been listening, we have our lovely, wonderful guests, Mac and Rowan, who are drawing for us live. They are awesome. And this is a time where we'd like to do some live Q&A. So me and my lovely
Nice.
co-host have some questions. If you have questions in Twitch chat, please ask.
I'm
But
sweating.
I'll start off. I know that you guys have been interested in a few topics, so I'd like to ask. First off, you both have created fairly complex characters. Ro, you kind of alluded to this earlier, that Malcolm has been one of your OCs for a while, so that adds some complexity. You've had plenty of time to flesh him out. What are some quick basic tips when you want to take a character to the next level?
I hate to be cliche, but don't be afraid to be cliche. A lot of people, they see like when you watch a movie or something and that's an old time favorite, like an action movie, or like specifically like for me, something that really got me inspired to design Malcolm was James Bond, of all people. You know, like I really liked this character, but just I wanted someone who was him, but like literally as opposite as possible. You know, long hair, pretty faced, kind of more here for the show and the fun instead of actually doing the job sort of guy. and that's fine. Like there's nothing wrong with taking inspiration from like I don't want to call them well all
Other.
these Bagoli, you know what I mean? Like just
Mhm.
really well-known characters. Don't ever be afraid of that in.
No, I mean a
I
lot of
like
the most
how you
iconic.
you created Malcolm, knowing that that was the thing, and then he turned out to be fucking pussy galore
Yeah,
instead.
because another thing I like to keep Malcolm. He's very like specifically just an example here. Malcolm, he's very unable to like let go of the past, and so he's very used to in the morning getting up and then like there being coffee uh waiting for him and not like a rapier and a shield that's bloodied from yesterday. Like he's not used to beholders and like all this shit. So he does pussy out sometimes, and he really does. He has days where he's like, I'm not fucking doing this. Okay, you want to go out there and save a princess? Okay, you do that. But then because he's someone who genuinely enjoys helping people, he would sigh and then end up doing it anyway, and even get so fucking wrapped up in the plot. He's part of the main plot now, and I hate when that happens, but it's just that way, my guy, you know? Like yesterday, he got fucking kidnapped because he didn't want Pidge to be the one to go into this place that had a door that was closing by the second, and so he told Pidge to stay back, and he was pissing himself, but he just fucking scuttered right on in after telling Pidge not to. So that's why I say the best characters, morally, they're the biggest hypocrites.
Definitely.
But yeah, there's no shame in having those moments of contradiction with your
Well,
character.
maybe not
Don't
the
be
best
afraid to make them a
characters.
person, is what
But
I'm
it-
basically saying.
I think being a hypocrite can make it an interesting character, right?
Oh yeah,
Because it's
flaws
like
are very important, and Malcolm, he has a
definitely.
shit ton of them.
Because it's like you make it interesting by saying like, hey, listen, having a character that values other people and other things over themselves is interesting because one, you've given them a flaw, and two, you've given them a bond, right? And those are
Yeah.
two big things just on your character sheet, right? In terms of just making a character, and that's one thing that's really I'm not gonna say like a cheap and easy way, but that's definitely one way to like to have like some interesting parts of your character is to like make them hypocritical about some things. It's like fucking, hey, I don't want you to go and like kill yourself for me, but also I'm gonna go kill myself for you.
Honestly.
That's
Yeah.
him.
I think
And
that's
the
just like
thing is,
really.
also you're like, I don't know how to explain it. That like not everything about them should match up to their like their background, if that makes any sense. Like Malcolm, uh, he was a mobster boy. And a lot of times when things gang related come up, he's very unfazed, despite it like involving monsters, because that's his comfort zone. Like when there's like blood under his nails and there's someone in a chair that he needs information out of, he's comfortable with that. But like sometimes the displacement of being in a world where you can suddenly come back just because magic, quote unquote.
Yeah.
He's very uncomfortable with that. He doesn't like magic. He doesn't understand it, and he tends to be a bit of a racist to fiends and tieflings and like just sort of devilish folks, because he's just on Earth, yeah, everything is sort of very black and white with that sort of stuff. If you have horns, you're bad, and it's been a wild ride getting him from point A to point B, but he's definitely someone
I'm gonna
that I
pat you
love
on the
writing.
back, because that's one of my favorite things about Malcolm, is that he is like this dude who is literally just like a dude from Earth, and he's so new to Sigil, he didn't know what common was, and
Oh yeah, that was fun.
the only reason that he became slightly cool with anything was because Raz was there, and
Yeah,
Raz was able to
really.
help him like cope, and then he was like panicking this entire time, and he was like, I don't understand. I don't understand magic. I don't understand anything that's happening, but I'm gonna, I guess, deal with it, and I'm gonna do the best that I can.
Yeah, like D&D, it's a fantasy game. There's dragons. Like depending on what like I mean his backstory is very wild. He has like 10 sisters and shit like that. So that's where like I was like, oh, this literally can't happen. But well,
Gets
not
wilder when
specifically.
you mix up your
Yeah.
backstories of other people too.
Yeah. It's things like that that it's just like, okay, this makes no fucking sense in real life, but the way he acts like helps people immerse themselves enough in the moment that it doesn't matter. And so it's just a matter of balance, you know? Like his backstory is very edgy, and I keep using my character specifically because I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but his his backstory is a very edgy, sad time. But Malcolm himself isn't. I mean, he's a little depressed on Maine because he's a lovesick boy right now, but that's not. I don't really think. I don't really think that like changes things too much from what he would have been, even if he wasn't lovesick, because he still would have like stuck his neck out for Ruz, especially like in an instant, and he will continue to do that. So it's just
I do.
have fun with it. Don't be afraid to experiment. If you normally write really sweet and happy characters, okay, cool. Maybe try a villain. If you usually write really edgy characters, maybe try a sweetheart. You know, just have fun.
You kind of
'Cause-
touched on it a little bit, but one cool thing that you just mentioned was if you don't have a character that you think is necessarily complex, then put them in complex situations. And that's one
yeah.
good way to
Yeah.
kind of put them in tough situations that sort of you and your character both learn how to handle it, and you get backstory out of that. So
For
Yeah,
sure.
there's a lot
Like
of things.
making
Go
them,
ahead.
like adding events. That's one thing. In the Xanathar's tables actually, that they do pretty well for that. If you look, there's a part in the Xanathar's Guide to Everything, called "This Is Your Life" or something like that, or "This Is My Life,"
Yeah.
where you just
Oh, yeah.
roll on a big ass table, and it gives you life events and stuff. And those are really cool to just even look at, honestly, because I find myself, instead of rolling, I just look at them, and I'll see it. I'll see which ones I like, and I'll pick and mix and match. And
it's
then
good
I'll,
inspiration.
yeah, it's really
Yeah.
good inspiration.
It's
Another
really
thing-
good, and it's especially fun when you have a character that you don't know anything about, and then you're
Mhm.
like, I'm gonna build my family, and
Oh,
then you're
God.
like, I know my parents, I know I have 4 brothers, I had 4 brothers, rip in peace those guys.
There's a lot of cool things that you can do, and then that just makes it fun, because now you can add bonds, right? Family members. You can add what's it called? Ideals and things, depending on, like, your class, the classes of your family members, even, because it'll roll that as well, which is pretty cool, and just all types of stuff, and it's really interesting. The stuff that those
Yeah.
tables can get to, and how they can help in making
I
that
like-
character for you.
I like how they force you to have like a tragic event in that one, so you're not like just running your entire life being like, oh, everything's totally fine, because nobody's life is like that. Even if you're a noble, somebody must have like shoved you at some point, and that didn't feel good.
Probably, yeah.
So it kind of forces you to have a different perspective on being like, you are going to have a bad day, and here is what that bad day was. Some of them are like, oh, there was a horrible famine and your entire family died, and that's like, oh, that's a little much. So you don't have to go with that. You can be as edgy or not edgy as you want to be. Like, I
Yeah.
read a lot of edgy characters. Pidge is probably like the least edgy of them all. Like, the only thing that's wrong with him currently is that he
Is with
doesn't.
Rose.
He's with Raz. That's the worst.
Yeah,
And then-
honestly, fuck Rose. I love him. I hate this. I hate how much I love this man.
He, like, his mom left when he was little. He's like, I mean, more power to her wherever she's at. So he's not even all that bummed about it. And that's always been fun
Yeah.
to write for him.
Actually, now that you mentioned that, another thing is, I know how this is gonna sound. Your character doesn't need a reason to adventure if you literally cannot come up with one, because you can't for the life of you understand why your character would give a fuck about anything that happened to them so far. Then they don't need that. You know what? They could just literally be like, hey, I was genuinely curious to see if I could do this. And then you could go from there and be like, oh, the harsh realities of adventuring, put them in a state where they like reconsider their choices of this and this and this, you know? Like, the backstory can wait. Like, you don't ever have to have a set backstory. You can always add on whatever you want and change whatever you want and so forth. It's not ever just you just sit down and you write for like 30 minutes and then you're done.
Oh, yeah.
It's never like that.
So I'm gonna give you guys a secret again. When I made Avash, and I played my first games, I didn't have a backstory written. I still don't. I don't have a backstory written. I have notes. I have bits and pieces of things that happen, people he's worked for, and events that I kind of just make up whenever the roleplay is needed, or like whenever the roleplay calls for it, or whenever the game calls for it, and things like that. You don't have to, spend your first few minutes before session 1 and in character creation, just like fleshing out where your parents came from, the economy of the kingdom you lived in, and all this crap. Like, you don't need all that. Most of that can just come naturally, right? Or you can just make it up whenever you need to. That's something I love doing because it makes a more freeform character at the end of the day, because it's just like, oh, do we have people who have experience with gangs? It's like, yeah, my dude totally fucking, like, yeah, he used to make deliveries for these people. It would just like, he'd go up to a door, there'd be a light up in the window, and then he'd like check the rug, and there's like a key, and he opened a garage door, and there's like a package. There's this weird process. I don't know what was up with that, but it's like, doing shit like that makes a more interesting character, in my opinion. And that's what I love doing, and that's what I did for Avash. And it kind of just spiraled out of control into this, like, I don't know, one of my favorite characters.
Let me close out the topic just because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
But I'd say probably one of the biggest things, be consistent. That's kind of like the ongoing message between all of this is no matter if you're doing a lot of your character creation live during sessions or your character creation is in backstory, one goal you should have is to be consistent, not jump over multiple flaws, multiple ideals and such.
Yeah, don't overdo it. Take it easy. This is one man or woman or whatever. You can only do so much. And they can only do so much. That's also another thing. It's okay for them to have hard stops and things. Like, they're just too afraid to do something. Like, it's okay. It's just above all, play and write something you're gonna have fun playing.
Yeah.
So,
like, okay, if you see that a server needs someone that's like not so edgy and a total stereotype, you don't want to play that, then don't be that. Simple.
So if you're watching in Twitch chat, we're still taking questions from Twitch chat. Feel free to ask specifically one of our guests or us as a whole. Evie, Crook, do you guys have any questions for our guests that you'd like to know that you've been just dying to figure out?
I've just been kind of watching Ro draw. Why do you do the blobby bits and then erase it?
What do you mean?
Like,
fill in the colors.
like when you do the
brushing.
coloring, you do like the blobs and then you just erase the outsides. Isn't it easier just to go like, I'm going to dip in the lines?
The thing is, I try to kind of ignore the lines. I know how that sounds because I have the lines. But the thing is, colors look a lot different if you like fucking take away like the hard stops of like objects just being objects. So it's important to see this red with this blue, and then with like this green and stuff like that. So that's why I'll just like blob on and make sure that they overlap a little bit, to make sure that like all this looks, at least in some way or another, good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally get. No, yeah, I totally get what you mean, because they kind of have
I get it now. Yeah.
the colors
Yeah,
need to
because
overlap,
black.
because that's how things work.
That's how life is.
Yeah, you put a red jacket over a blue T-shirt, and it makes the contrast, but it needs to look like the red jacket is over the T-shirt.
Mm-hmm.
Hell yeah. See, man, y'all should teach color theory. Fucking just coming down to Chicago and teach my class. Shit.
Listen,
Oh,
I took a
here's a
bunch of
good one.
classes, but it wasn't anything formal. It was mostly just like, hey, did you know that blue is a cool color and red is a warm color?
Wow.
Here's a question
I was
really
like,
quick from Olivia
Go ahead.
Fall asks in Twitch chat. Have any of you had players cry during a session or game? Like, legitimately cry?
Yeah, Leslie.
Oof.
Well, do listeners
Listen,
count?
listeners.
Well, yeah, like people who like.
Oh,
listen to
like
the session,
observers.
'cause
Yeah.
Leslie cried when Malkin turned that body into a stain on the sidewalk. Apparently.
I know who
I'm-
Olivia Full is, and I will call her out. Yeah, she cries at most of the sessions she listens in when I'm in it.
Have any of you cried while being a player, though? Just to clarify.
I'm gonna out Krook.
Yeah, I got real fucking close. Multiple
Yeah.
times. When Avash was about to die, fucking when my character Furion died in CWM, because I was really close.
Yeah,
and
he also got
literally almost
married.
died.
You cried during the wedding. I remember
Yeah,
that.
I almost cried during the wedding when they got married.
That's so cute. What the fuck?
And there was a huge server-wide event, and everybody was watching, and he was like fucking. And we were like, yeah, we the same.
Oh man.
Fucking.
That's good. It's nice to be
But
so
have
touched
I
with
ever
you.
made my characters cry? I have not done that. I have made characters extremely panicked. I've made them extremely worried, scared even. But I've never made characters like cry. I made them sad. In a home game that I don't want to talk about anymore. With some people who are in this call right now.
Yeah.
There was a situation where there was a hag stealing children because that's how they do things. And I had a mother who was panicked because she was like mind controlled, didn't even realize that her son's been missing this entire time, and so she's like, freaking out and stuff. And I presented that situation, and it was supposed to be like in a way uncomfortable, but also emotional. And it was a really interesting thing, but it didn't get anyone to cry, but it made everyone feel really, really sad and upset. And it was like it got what I was going for, but I didn't get the crying thing. And I don't think I've ever gotten that.
I don't think I've ever full-on cried. I've had characters almost cry, but the thing is, like, if I don't cry, I think it's just like bad roleplay to say. So if it was Anna, for instance, if I were mid-session, I would say something along the lines of, well, yeah, I guess Anna she starts to cry. I don't like doing that because if I can't act out those emotions, then it kind of dampens the moment. It's just too passive for good roleplay.
Pitch is a crybaby.
Yeah.
And that's where me as a player kind of inhibits my characters, right?
Yeah.
Like if Gavin just doesn't get emotional enough to cry during sessions, which I don't know, maybe it'll happen one day. Maybe it'll be a Planar March's DM finally breaks Gavin. But I don't want to have my characters cry if I don't. So it's a restriction for sure. Anyone else?
For me, my experience with like if making characters cry as in my own character, oh boy. That's a whole bag of cats. I mean, my whole concept with Raz is he has fragile masculinity due to his identity as a transgender man. And he doesn't really show his emotions much, especially crying. But when there are moments of vulnerability, he does cry. But he doesn't like it because he feels like a fucking sissy little girl when he does it.
But do you cry?
When it comes to about me,
Yeah,
me
because that's the
crying,
original
it's
question, right? Not characters crying.
Yeah,
But
the question was players.
of me as a player crying.
Just out yourself.
Well,
man. Just out yourself.
Yeah. Olivia Falls asking, right?
Huh?
Tim knows that I will say all these terrible things about my characters with a smile. It's really hard to make me crack about these kind of stuff because I most get desensitized by it. But I have made other people cry because of my characters. But the one time I gave a doppelganger depression.
Yeah.
God.
Oh yeah.
I remember that.
God, I have so many feelings about Rose, man. I've never cried, but like, fuck, I love one man.
Now crying. Now, okay, so there is a difference, right? I feel very sad over events with my characters,
Oh, of course.
but I don't.
Mhm.
Like,
Oh, yes.
I just never break down crying. I just
Oh,
never
yes,
get that far,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I feel like that kind of falls into like an important thing that happens during D&D where you have to like separate yourself from your character. You
Mhm.
physically have to do that because the things the thing about adventuring, it's not fun.
Soccer.
Oh no,
Yeah.
It's just
Fucked up
fucking
things
it's
happen.
awful.
Fucked up
You should
things happen.
never be an adventurer. If like the
Ever.
world turns into D&D, we should not do what we do.
Yeah.
Our characters
There's
do
a-
what they do, and they are expected to do it with a smile on their face, and not all of the time does that happen.
And you know what? That's
Um,
actually that's pretty important to note because I don't know how many of you played 3.5 or third edition, but there was this time where Wizards of the Coast were releasing just version after version of D&D. You had Star Wars Saga, which was Star Wars 3.5, but there was one in particular called D20 Modern. And shout outs to
Oh,
anyone
yeah.
who's ever heard or played that game before. But it
They
was
made the UA
basically
about that.
it was the modern version of D&D 3.5. And one note they made was you've only got about 1 to 5 leveled adventures in a city at any given time. There's probably only a handful, especially even in big cities. There's probably a few people who have levels, and there might be one level 20 character in New York City as a whole.
Yeah, that's yeah. I think I don't want to call it a problem, because I don't. Well, actually, yeah. You know what? It's a very fucking slippery slope, Bella. Gloves are coming off for a hot sec. I feel like people who get so attached to the character to the point where like the idea of them taking damage gives them anxiety should switch characters. And I mean that because at the end of the day, D&D is meant to be fun. And
Yeah.
there's a lot, and this server is huge. It's fucking ginormous. There's more than 200 people by now, probably.
Mhm.
No, yeah, we hit 200
And
like a while back.
You're going to meet a lot of characters, and you're going to meet a lot of fucking people that want to manipulate your character at times, and they want to be awful because that's just how they are, and that's how people will play their character, and it happens. But if you put yourself in the mental state that like, oh no, this is me, you're gonna not only stress yourself out, you're not gonna have fun interacting with anyone.
No.
So let me-
Different alignments that actually challenges their beliefs and stuff like that, and helps your character grow. You're not gonna want to have any part of it. So just be very careful with that.
So let me take
If I
a
have advice, it's that.
Let me take a bold statement on that then, okay? So I'm not trying to like specifically call anyone out, or if you do this, you're bad, but you should have a healthy disconnect between your character and yourself, right? I think we
Yes.
touched on this.
Absolutely.
So if you're crying
Definitely.
over something happening to your character, you can. No, people cry at stories, people cry at movies. That's one
Yeah.
thing.
Mhm.
But make sure that if you're crying over a D&D session, make sure it's the healthy kind, right? Because there is a very unhealthy kind of that.
Yeah. There's like it's the difference between crying, like I am crying because I have watched the end of Pocahontas and this makes me sad but feel
the
good at the
beginning of
same
Up.
time. Or the beginning of Up, like because I'm being told something that is sad and I am crying because of that, versus I am crying because I am no longer having a good time and I'm crying because I'm legitimately sad. There's a
Yeah.
huge difference between
Mm.
that, and once you cross that barrier between I am having fun to I am no longer having fun, that's when it gets very dangerous.
Yeah, because like we don't, nobody. I think we server. Nobody wants to make you not have fun. That's the most important thing. And the thing is, we just we want to get together and we want to, sometimes some people really do want to get rowdy. They want to be like, yeah, this character is very gullible, very easy to manipulate. I'm gonna ask. Well, you should always ask before you like try to do something that could eventually traumatize a character or anything. And I mean that as in, like, especially the goody two shoes ones that are like, oh yeah, you're adventuring, I'm gonna go do this now, and like like there's just a
Mhm.
difference between that and a veteran character that's a necromancer and like got its abilities because they killed their parents. Like
Mhm.
there's a very big difference there, and you should consult with writers and stuff. But also, if like the idea of them being confronted by something like that instantly makes you uncomfortable, instead of like hoping that it ends up maybe good in a way and stuff like that, then I don't know what to tell you except maybe play a different character or try to figure out a way to like disengage yourself a little bit, because
Take a break.
that's gonna end up being unhealthy.
Yeah.
That's something that I definitely recommend. Is stopping.
Yeah.
Chilling out. Like refrain from role playing or role playing heavily. Refrain from joining games that involve
Heavy themes.
or just
Yeah.
games at all, right?
Mhm.
And then having that break will eventually probably give you that
Play.
disconnect that you need.
I would
Because
say
I know
play.
even now, sorry to interrupt you, Gavin, but I'm
You're
gonna
right.
say even now there's stuff happening that is kind of fucking harsh and kind of fucked up, right?
Yeah.
And definitely I felt like the pressure with that, but I understand that it's a game, it's a story that we're trying to tell, and shit's gonna get rough, but we just have to like kind of continue to remind ourselves that it's a disconnect, and like
Yeah.
we're
like,
trying to
people-
tell a story, we're trying to play games.
Yeah.
There's people that are like straight up like, wow, you're really fucking mean to Malcolm. Like, don't you get tired? And it's like, no, not really, because he's such a separate entity from me. If I was night, Malcolm's fucking day, my guys. Like, it's not. And you don't always have to play that either. You literally fucking make a self-insert. Nobody's gonna stop you.
Yeah.
But it's just, for me, I like exploring morals and ideas completely different of mine because it's a challenge as a writer and someone who is looking for something new that D&D can provide. It's just, I like it as an experience. So just be careful with that. We're not calling anybody out. We're not, you
Yeah.
know, gonna like put anybody on the spot or anything. But it's just, it's be careful because if you're in the server, we want you to have fun.
Yeah.
And
My,
D&D is a story, but there is also conflict in any good story.
Yeah.
So finding the healthy barrier between what is fun conflict and what is too much conflict is really the best part, I think.
Yeah, because like I mentioned before, I came back to.
Oh.
He's the only one
Oh.
I really be able to use as an example, just
yeah.
to like not be rude to anyone else or anything. But Malcolm, he sometimes he ends up being part of the critical plot point and things just because he jumps in and hopes that it's ended, like a fight is ended so fast that nobody else even gets hurt or has to take out their weapon. He's like, in his mind it's damage control, but in everyone else's mind it's him being fucking stupid and about to get himself killed, which is what also, in my opinion, is like 80% of the time. So it's stuff like that like if I overly liked Malcolm and I like couldn't separate myself from him, I wouldn't be able to write him because I'd just be so drained and worried about him all the damn time. It wouldn't be any fun.
Yeah.
Be careful with like think about that when you're making your character.
I think
So,
that's a good time to stop, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I just have one closing note on that.
Sure.
If you want to, this is kind of against the point of the podcast, but if you want to approach heavier themes, then find a group of friends and play in a home game, in person, online. Play in a safer environment with
Yes.
friends that you trust.
Yeah.
Yes.
This is not the server for avoiding certain things because you're just dealing with people. And if you are inclusive, if you're an introvert who doesn't like approaching heavy themes in groups of people, well, this is a group that approaches heavy themes and has a lot of people. So, that said, if you guys want to follow up on that topic, if any of us really spoke to you as we talked about this, feel free to reach out to any of us, and we'd love to help walk you through it.
Yeah.
So, and none of us
Definitely.
claim to be perfect, but having just an ear to talk to is helpful. At least take that first step. So with that said, Crook, you're right. That's a good time to go ahead and end the show. One last chance for shout outs for everybody. Evie, take it away.
Shout out to Raiden. I remember how live he used to be. I still hear the sounds of his voice. Shout out to the new guy, fucking Degenerate. He's pretty cool. Definitely not Raiden. Really excited to meet Wanye Kest, his character, which is a definitely real character.
I fucking hate him so much.
His $90
terrible.
t-shirts aren't selling that well, so he has to take up the life of adventuring.
God, put it back. Just put this whole fucking joke back. You know what? I'm leaving.
All right. Fucking shout out to the artist. on the server. Trying to make a better alias that looks a little bit prettier, but the one that I have is okay. For now.
You can do an embed, but anyway.
You listen. Shut up.
Yeah.
Correct.
You good? My turn? Can I? Okay.
Yeah.
First off, everybody knows. Shoutouts to.
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah.
Shoutouts to cheeseburgers. Good shit.
Shoutouts to cheeseburgers.
Shoutouts to Quiznos. I had a Quiznos sub today.
Nice.
I feel like Twitch is gonna copyright this. Stop talking.
I like how when you have erased the backlines, it like up to the line, it looks like she's vibrating now, which is exactly as she should be.
Yeah, that is the constant state of being.
She had a bunch of energy drinks. Her healing potions are Monster energy drinks.
Sponsor segment.
Oh yeah.
Brayden, if we had sponsors, fucking.
Gavin would.
Gavin's supposed
Gavin
to be
would be-
sharing his fucking Twitch support with us, so.
Gavin would just be a god among men if I were ever to get sponsors for this show. Like if
Buy
you want
me
to sponsor
Overwatch.
this show, be my guest. I have no clue why you would. Like minor miracle wish spell had just been cast. Like this is the Planar Podcast brought to you by Red Bull. Anything else, Chris?
Red Bull. Let's go.
Red Bull.
Do I have any other shoutouts? Shoutouts
Back.
to everyone who talked in the chat. Shoutouts to people in the server. I love all of you.
yeah,
good.
I love you.
Quick shout outs, bro.
Shoutouts.
My shoutouts. First, shoutouts to the best audiobooks online at audible.com.
I will fucking suck too, man.
That's Audible. Start your 30-day free trial at audible.com/free
Do
trial.
not start Audible.
Shoutouts to fucking
Audible sucks.
Razor.
But seriously, shoutouts to my best friend Tim for supporting me through this and for helping me with a wake up call. Or not, I would have been completely missing this segment. Shoutouts to all of you people, sweet people at the Planar Marches. Especially to Romulus. I love that guy. That guy
You gotta
also.
save the. You have to save the ROM shout out for Gavin. He took the ROM shout.
Listen,
Oh,
honestly,
really?
shout out to
You know what?
Romulus
Fuck you! I
always.
take it from Gavin, and it's now mine. Sorry, but all my love for Rom is now me. Gavin, you have to find someone else to shout out. Fuck you.
Okay, so Rose's turn. Just to get the mic away from Mac.
Shout out to Leslie and everyone hoping to get immersed and enjoy D&D, and new artists, new DMs, all of you that are just trying something new and out of your comfort zone. Props to you. And just overall, hi to everyone that actually listened into me and Mac and our bullshit as guests tonight. It was awesome being here. So yeah.
Then,
Did you misspell fuck or like what's going on?
Fake.
Fake.
Well,
all right. I
Okay.
figured it out. I've cracked the code. We're all fine. Listen,
It's okay.
I'll
everything's
we're-
fine.
we'll handle that later. I'd like to give a quick final shout out. I got like 1 minute left. Shout outs to Rom. Fuck you, Mac. Rom, you're my hero. The glue that puts this stream, chat, podcast server together. Shout outs to Rom. Shout outs to all of our wonderful viewers, our wonderful guests, except Mac, who just like made my shit listen.
Okay, you know what? You see that dot on your forehead? That's my sniper ready to kill you on the spot.
And let's have a fantastic podcast or next week.
Oh my god, you
Thursday or
just fucking
Friday.
killed Mac! Oh my god! No!
See you guys.
Jesus
See you guys next week. That was the plan.
God.
That was the Planar Podcast episode 4. Thanks everyone for watching.
Hang on. If you type the code PPodcast at newegg.com, you can get a 15% discount. Okay, no, you can
Okay,
go.
kick me out. Just kick me out. Take me out. Chief.
Alright, just fucking take him out.
Kill Row on stream. There it is.
The best part is behind the scenes. We do that like 1 minute after the show's over every episode.
Yeah,
just
every
brutally-
time.
We
Just before
brutally
they can eat. Goodbye.
We brutally kick. It usually goes, you know what, Connor, thanks for joining. Bye. And then we kick him.
Yeah.
So
Thanks for joining. I love you. Bye.
thanks so much for watching, guys. Next episode next week between Thursday and Sunday. We'll see you guys next time.
I love you. Bye.